Thank you, John, and good evening, everyone, and what a great turnout. I think I'd start by thanking the Waihi Beach Katikati Resident Ratepayers Association combined with the Omokoroa Resident Ratepayers for organising tonight's meeting. Very important issue that we're all confronting, and great to see the turnout that we've got. John is the Chair, John Palmer of the Omokoroa Resident Ratepayers, and Keith Hay is the Chairman of the Waihi Beach Katikati Combined Resident and Ratepayers. The topic for tonight is really the forthcoming referendum that many councils around the country are facing. It's been a rather contentious, divided, some would say polarised issue with our council and within our community. It's a very important issue. Goes right back to sort of basic constitutional sort of what's right and wrong and what's good for the long-term future. So we're very pleased to have a very distinguished speaker here tonight. Initially we'd arranged it was going to be Shane Jones, and we were delighted. We thought, we've got Shane Jones, that's tremendous. And then more recently we got a message Shane couldn't make it. He says, but I'll find a substitute. Well, that's what he said. Little did we realise he'd actually get the boss to do the job. So delighted to have you with us, Winston. I've known Winston for a fairly long time. One term of Parliament we sat next to each other. We were both in the front row of the crossbenches. I had Richard Prebble on one side and Winston on the other. So you imagine the points of orders that were flying around the house. But Winston has had, as we all know, I should say the Right Honourable Sir Winston, very distinguished political career. I just reminded him, you won't like me saying this, but he first entered Parliament in the seat of Hanua in 1978 after winning an electoral petition. And I think the real measure of his determination, tenacity and endurance is that he's actually been behind 3 electoral petitions. They're quite rare beasts, but as the Hanua one, he then secured the Waikaremoana seat for Roger McLean, and then after that the Wairarapa seat when Wyatt Creech entered Parliament. Reg Borman in 1987 won that seat by one vote. And he used to say, I take my majority with me. But then Winston came along and supported Wyatt Creech and won that seat. But as we all know, Winston's our Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I believe doing a splendid job representing this country in very critical times in a global sense, doing a fantastic job in that role. Until very recently he was serving as Deputy Prime Minister. He's served in that capacity before in various governments over the time. So let's put your hands together for a very warm welcome to the Right Honourable Winston Peters. Thank you.
Ken Shirley will remember this, but one of our colleagues years ago was in the deep South Island, and he said, can you all hear me down the back? This wise old guy said to him, well, yeah, I can, but I'm very willing to change seats with someone who can't. We don't want one of those evenings, but ladies and gentlemen, and the Honourable Ken Shirley, the Waihi Beach Katikati Residents and Ratepayers Association and Keith Hay, the Omokoroa Residents and Ratepayers Association and John Palmer. I understand Western Bay District Council members and Bay of Plenty Regional Council members are here. So whatever it is, thanks for the, not the invite, but for the instruction to be here to fill in on a prior arrangement made by a colleague at a very critical time when tomorrow we are launching our 32nd convention in Palmerston North. But in between times we've got meetings in Auckland all the way to lunchtime and then have to fly down. So I'm afraid this has come out of left field at the very last moment, but because it was Katikati and the Western Bay, we decided we'd do it anyway. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out tonight. Now, this is the extraordinary thing about tonight's meeting, because of all the places in New Zealand where there should be a lesson about the equality and fairness of voting, one person, one vote, it should be the Western Bay and a place called Tauranga. And of course, Kari used to be in Tauranga way back when. But the real point is that the city of Gate Power in the Great Battle chose somebody with a Maori background in 1984, and after that, 3 years after he'd gone, in 2008 chose somebody else with a Maori background. That's twice, here in the Western Bay. So it means something, that you don't have to have paternalistic favours to be equal. That's what this meeting tonight's about. The thing that is most revolting about the strategic planning of these people seeking to bring about the demise of democracy, one person, one vote, is that they are trying to say that without their help, you can't be even. You can't be equal. Now, ladies, if some male said to you without their help, you could not be equal, what would you think? I tell you, it's amazing. But if you said to a woman today, they'd be so infuriated. But there are so many people out there in the Maori world who are pushing this leftist, Marxist, communist mantra that we need to have separate seats. We need to have a separate standard of law. We need to have a separate parliament. We need to be separate. That's not what they mean. They mean that they don't want democracy because under democracy they're under control. They want the freedom to dictate your lives. And the shocking row going on right here, right now between Te Pāti Māori and the Labour Party is staggering. The comments made by Taka Ferris about the people who are back in the Labour Party in a Maori Party campaign for the seat up there in Auckland is most unusual. First of all, Pena Henrik had a seat stolen off him in one of those most crook anti-democratic exercises this country's ever seen. Clear as daylight. The Maniwera Marae, where the winning candidate came from, had twice the number of votes cast there for one party, and all the rest of the polling booths, and all the rest of the seat. That screams lies. It screams cheating. It screams fraud. And why would somebody like me know? Well, I got to Parliament by going to the court on the matter. I spent 6 months without pay on the road, 6 months without pay in court, and I turned over 512 votes. 512. Not easy, ladies and gentlemen. But I caught somebody cheating. And it wasn't difficult to work out because having seen what had happened in a prior election, we were all on guard. But the process was difficult. And I just might say as an aside, this is how little you appreciate it. Having after 12 months been on the road and 6 months in court, got all my pay the next morning having arrived the night before, the first thing the Granny Herald wanted to know was, what was it like trying to win this huge fight? No, they want to know what it has to do with my back pay. You got no idea. I'm sitting there and I'm hopping mad, and he said, the first thing he asked me is, what are you going to do with your back pay? I said, I haven't got back pay. I've been paid since the time I won. And I spent hundreds of thousands in the court to get here. What on earth are you talking about? Had a row with him then. I never had another conversation for the rest of my career. I'm sorry. If people don't appreciate the price of democracy, then they don't deserve to be in any part of the democratic process. Because this is what we're talking about here in the Bay of Plenty. And it is staggering that we used to have, and Ken Shirley will remember it very well. And this is Labor brought it in 2002, the local government, the local Electoral Act, they brought it in 2001, but effective from 2002, that if there was a binding poll requiring an additional 5% to start the poll off, that voters conceded or wanted to have then a separate Maori ward, then the council could have one. But it had to be at the approval of the ratepayers and the local people. Remember that, Mr. Shirley?
I do indeed.
And that's what we're talking about. We can talk about all the nuances on the way through and in between. But then when another person, Mahuta, got in to be the Minister of Local Government, she took away the right of the local people to decide, and she said that the council could decide. And so the council could make a decision without any approach or any agreement whatsoever of their local ratepayers. And who are the ratepayers? Well, a bit like politics, ladies and gentlemen, they're the masters of local government. Just like you are the masters of central government. Well, you would be forgiven for not thinking so. You'd be utterly forgiven for not thinking so anymore, because at this point in time, it's all about, as you know, in present day politics, a vowel sandwich. The more vowels you can put into the words you use, and the more you can wave your arms around like an Italian chef at a restaurant trying to explain the menu, and flash your eyes and look sideways, then the more you can impress the mainstream media. It is utter bulldust. Truly speaking, it's utter bulldust. What they've designed to do here is, of course, is ensure that they themselves uniquely become the master. And sadly, I saw here in the Tauranga City Council has got a certain view. Dare I say it, the Western Bay Council, District Council, has been attacked, hasn't it, not for improperly advertising one side of the argument. What happened to that famous Phil Collins story, that song he used to sing? Remember Phil Collins is? You're too young to remember him, but all the rest of you can. But he sang a song called, "You Gotta Hear Both Sides of the Story." But we're not. Even your local council is advertising one side of the story, even though there's a precedent for their failure in another part of New Zealand, and nobody's doing a darn thing about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I know something about prejudice, massively. I call the Party Maori a bunch of lying, fraudulent cheats. When it comes to the Charities Act, they're as guilty as sin. So what are the officials doing? But when it comes to the Electoral Act, what's the Electoral Commission doing? What is the Serious Fraud Office doing? And I've got a right to ask about the Serious Fraud Office, because in the 2020 campaign in April they launched a massive attack on one person in his party, and they won, even though they had to face the court on the 29th of September of that year. They'd done so much damage it was all over road for us. It was all over Rover. So we win the first court case, outside of court, on the 29th of September of 2020, when they had to say, but the leader and his members, none of them are responsible for the allegations we're making. They're not guilty of fraud. But they'd said so much filthy things about us, it didn't matter. Then they go to court. And guess what? They lost. Then they went to the Court of Appeal, from the High Court to the Court of Appeal. Hey, they lost again. That's 3 losses, $4.2 million of your taxpayers' money, and not one person has been fired as a consequence. I know what dirt looks like. If they had applied that to Te Pāti Maori, every charge they make would succeed, I can tell you now. Because they're as guilty as sin. With respect to the Charities Act, with respect to treating, with respect to lying about the the census information, all of which they got and misused. Not one charge has been laid yet. See what's wrong with your society? And guess whose fault it is? Well, ladies, when you're doing your hair tomorrow morning, look in the mirror. And you gentlemen, you haven't a shave in the morning, you have a good hard look in the mirror. Because if it wasn't your fault, then why aren't your neighbours packing this place with the walls out the other side? Because they don't think that it's worth the effort, when you and I know, and thank God you're here, and thank you for turning out tonight. If we don't make the effort, then the success for the others will be inevitable. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out tonight, and I hope that you get out in the next few weeks and days and make sure that you win this campaign. We don't need the Maori wards. What's my evidence for that? Well, dare I say it, well, I'm one. The other guy, Bridges, is another person. So that's a long time in a seat called Tauranga. My brother was the head of the Northern Regional Council, so it somewhat suggests that's not required either. Dover Samuels, as you all know, won a fair go against everybody else. We got a Maori mayor in Rotorua, for goodness sake. You got a Maori mayor in Wellington, and you had 3 Asian mayors of Dunedin. So please don't tell me that our background is the problem. Our problem is that our people don't get off their backside and vote. If they, as we all know, a minority up against an apathetic majority is always going to win. And if the Maori voters in this country were concerned about getting people into local government, all they have to do is vote. If you want to argue about that, go and give me the numbers who will vote on election day here when your vote happens in the local government, and tell me which Maori couldn't win in any area they went for if they got all the Maori vote out, or even half the Maori vote out. But you don't please think you're going to make any change in the society if you're going to get there by pure apathy, no action, no reaction, and just demand it as of right. So we'll have a Maori ward. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't get me wrong. The mainstream media in this country and the universities are filled with people who can't do their mathematics. You know, up to 1975, to get on the Maori roll, you had to be half Maori or more. Right? Half Maori or more. After that, all you had to do was to recite a Maori ancestor, which means, given the time of Europeans arriving in this country, that could be one part Maori in 512. And pray don't tell me if I'm 1/8 Maori, 1/16, 1/66 Maori, that I can just call myself Maori because I feel like it. That's not the point anyway. I'm proud of people's different background. I'm proud of all parts of that background. Surely we should be. For goodness sake, I'm half Maori and half Scots. No one's perfect. There used to be a guy who used to be on Maori TV and on Korean on television. You remember his name, Billy James? Yes. Billy T. James? Now, he couldn't survive today, but he got a lot of people to actually understand with great affection Maori, because he was telling jokes as most of the Irish used to do about ourselves. Nowadays, you can't tell any joke about a Maori because you're being racist. And he said, well, I used to say, look, I'm half Scots, half Maori. The great advantage is it gives you a natural suntan and a desire to save money. And Billy used to say, one half he wants to get drunk, the other half doesn't want to pay for it. Now, can you possibly say today, oh no, there's so many Maori be incensed by it. You don't know what racism looks like if that's how you're going to react. Real racism, or dare I say it as women know, real prejudice is when somebody acts against your interests because they think they're superior to you and you're not on the same level. It's not difficult at all. And the great thing that we've striven against about all these years, and I was after all, only the fourth since 1854 to ever win a general seat by 1978. Only four in all that time, the Maori background, ever won a general seat. And I'm proud of the fact that we did. But you're right, Ken, I had to go to court for 6 months to dump this white guy out. And don't get me wrong, the point is, what's worth it if somebody's got to give it to you? What do you really value if somebody else can take it away because they gave it you in the first place? Equality means just that. Educated to the max, trained to the max, free to be equal because you're trained to be. That's the aspiration that we believe in and always will believe in. And that's why we believe in something that the Royal Commission, which brought about the change in electoral law and the two referenda of 2003 and 2002. You remember? No, 1992 and 1993. There was the runoff 1992 and the 1993. There was the final when MMP beat first past the post to start in 1996. And the Royal Commission said in time it would quickly prove that the Maori seats were no longer needed because there will be so many people with a Maori background and a different background in Parliament. And that all happened. We ended up with 28, 29 people in Parliament with Maori background, and no, that's not good enough. They still now are arguing, yeah, but you haven't got the right blood quantum. That's what the Party Maori said. You take home and look at that cowboy, this cowboy hat on. This colonial set he's got on his head. And his slippers and jandals and all the, informal, shocking dress he's got. And he says to people like me, you haven't got the right Maori quantum. I said, I'm going to look in the damn mirror. Right? And then when he got offended, typically and the speaker backed him, I said, who put those scribbles on your face? Because in my world, in my Maori world, just like my Scottish world, you know what the clans are like? You know what the Scottish clans are like, don't you? They are really tribal. just happened to be an unhappy fact that the worst cooks in Polynesia, the Maori, ran into the worst cooks in our case, in Europe, the Scottish. Ain't that true, ladies and gentlemen? We're great at saving money, but we aren't the best cooks. But back to my point here. Here's this person saying, oh yeah, but you haven't got the right quantum. Or somehow I'm superior. This is reeking of prejudice and racism at the extreme. And how are they getting away with it in the mainstream media? And the answer is, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, too many of you are just sitting there and saying, well, what can I do about it? Well, you better. Because we didn't get to this treasured, very rare bloom in civilization. Democracy, in the history of humanity, in all these thousands of years, is a very rare flower. We better defend and protect it to the max. Otherwise, we will lose it. And you can see all the challenges that come now. All designed, schematically designed to tear down the establishment of the system. Who are we? Well, we've had a democracy since 1854. Yes, in a country of 200 nations in a world of 200 nations in a good day, how many countries can make that claim? Only 9. We've got something to be proud of. And you can say all the things about those bad and chauvinist men in the old days, but the Maori got the vote in 1867. Found any country in the world where that happened, in that sort of setting. And women got the vote. Wouldn't believe this, woman, but you should, you'll understand, won't you? Women got the vote in 1893. As bad as you might say it is, it was still decades before other countries. So we are a country, whatever our failings, we've got something to be proud of and something to defend. And we do not need separate Maori ward. Why am I saying that? Because I can prove it all over the country. When there was a mayor in New Plymouth called Judd, and I went down against Willie Jackson for a debate one night, the town hall was wall to wall, and they had a referendum, and the local mayor who was backing the Maori ward got smashed in the referendum. The percentage was massive, about 4-1. And so he decided to retire, and he should have, because frankly, he was so out of touch with his ratepayers, it didn't really matter. But the point, ladies and gentlemen, here, in this coming period coming up to this election, you've got to tell your neighbours, tell them all. And above all, remember this, there's an election coming up on this Friday, this Saturday night. We better hope that the Labour Party wins that election. Because if Te Pāti Maori, with all their cheating and lying, can win with such an incoherent, racist candidate, then we've all got difficulty in Parliament. Thank you very much. Look, we're happy. Ken's asked me to take questions, and I said, Ken, if any difficult ones, you can answer them. The other ones I'll do. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Winston. The Local Government Act states that a local authority should provide opportunities for Maori to contribute to its decision-making processes, and also requires Council to consider ways in which it may foster the development of Maori capacity to contribute to Council decision-making. Western Bay of Plenty District Council appears to go beyond providing opportunities for Maori to contribute to decision-making processes through submissions like everyone else, to include making these decisions by way of Maori wards and the possible appointment of Maori to council committees with voting rights. Do you, as a senior minister, consider that council is acting beyond the intentions of the Act? And would you, as a senior minister of a coalition government, support the removal of these clauses from the Act to prevent further growth of race-based decision-making in local government? Thank you.
There's nothing I like more than somebody asks a question with a whole lot of statements to go with it as to where the conclusion should be. This is not my first rodeo, okay? Just ask the question, as I say. So I'm totally against it. I'll tell you why. Because every councillor and every council, if they've got any brains, will make sure they consult with all the community. Not just one group, not just one race, all the community. That's what a sound council will do. Here's the classic at the moment it's going on. You've got a catastrophe going on in Auckland local bodies because of the planning mess that they've got, where they've shut down the main streets against all the businesses. You've got road cones everywhere, more road cones in New Zealand than all the rest of the world all put together. Well, go overseas and tell me I ain't true. Overseas you might see 4 road cones and a whole lot of those guys doing the work. Here you've got road cones, it's like this is the way to make money. It's an absolute fraud on the New Zealand ratepayer and road user. But that's what we've got. And you've got the same in Wellington, where they're having a full-scale attack on the car and the small businesses, and the whole place is closing up, and they wonder why. They're stupid idiots, can't they see? It's not like Saudi Arabia. It rains a lot in New Zealand, and it's cold in New Zealand, and it's blowing, and people that want to get there by car. Contrast, Wellington with Wanganui. No, it doesn't have H in it, by the way. Never did have an H in it until the Language Commission decided they're going to shove an H in it, when it never did. But Wanganui, what his name was, Wanganui City Council, rates increase 2.2%. That's when you stick to your business. That's when you consult with everybody. Doesn't matter what their race is. A good council and good councillors will have everybody in the mix and everybody in terms of making submissions. The very idea you're going to pick some to be heard begs the next question. Well, there's a whole lot of Indians in Auckland. What are you going to consult with the Indians? Oh, by the way, there are a lot of Chinese in Auckland. Why don't we consult with the Chinese as well? By the time you've finished, given how many people are in this country, you'll have so many people on the council all beating the ratepayers at no advance, at progress at all for the very people they meant to serve, the ratepayers of the city. Am I against it, sir? Now, having you put it that way, because you want me to get to that conclusion, yes, I am. And always have been.
Winston, thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, just one thing. I used to say way back when, one thing I used to admire about Buck Shelford, when he got on the paddock, he never said, look, don't tackle me too hard because I'm a Maori. Remember that game in Wales? They didn't have a great side, but they're playing against this Welsh side. In the first half, they had the win and they only had 3-0. Second half, the win's against them. The other side never got the ball for 40 minutes. Because you didn't say, but look, I'm a Maori, don't tackle me too hard. And I want that attitude right across the country. Stop saying you want to be equal with certain New Zealanders. You want to be the best in the world, for goodness sake. Stop lowering your standards here. But your question, please.
The Local Government Systems Improvement Act is before the Select Committee at the moment. I think there's one New Zealand First member of the committee. I put in a submission requesting all those Maori bits be taken out of the Local Government Act. What's New Zealand First's position on that bill? Are you going to start taking Maori stuff out of the legislation? Yeah.
Is your name Rip Van Winkle? Have you been asleep for the last 40 years? No, come on. Is your name Rip Van Winkle? Because I spent 40 years on the road. Not just saying something, doing it.
Well, are you going to
Take it out of the bill. At the moment, the bill is leaving all that stuff in.
All right, let me ask you a more honest question. Did you vote for me the last election? No. You voted for the National Party. So what are they going to do about it? What are you going to ask them? You're talking to the wrong party, mate.
Never asked them.
Oh, yes, and what did they say to you?
Probably the same you said.
Oh, no, they didn't. My guy would be there. He knows exactly what New Zealand first wants. We do not want racial distinction in our legislation.
Yep.
If people have, because of their race, a medical condition that requires a specific acknowledgement, then that's not being racial. That's being smart about the public health spend. But on this issue, sir, you tell me when I have not kept my word.
We're not asking you about it.
All right, then.
We're asking you about the...
I didn't come all the way down here. I'm going to drive home tonight. Well, look, sir, now that you've asked me, there's a lot of legislation in Parliament, and our guy on there is former Mayor of Wellington. Right? What did he say when you saw him?
Well, it hasn't been...
Well, we haven't, so you don't know what we're going to do down until you get there.
Don't have all submissions for another couple of months.
All right. I thought you'd already been there, but let me tell you, I'll speak to Andy Foster, who's our guy on the board, on the local body committee, and I'll ensure that, better still, you let me know what you submitted, that you get the proper hearing. But we're not for racial preference. Why? Because if anything is, that we despise more, that is inverse racism. Unless we change the law to help you up, then you're not good enough to be equal. It reeks of racism. That's what the other side are arguing for. All right? Thank you. There's a young man here, and a young guy at the back. Hang on. The guy will bring the microphone down to you after this one.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so... Now? Yeah, so, Mr. Peters, I just want to say I really admire your approach, and I find that in today's world, in New Zealand society, where both Marxist ideology is so widespread, your common sense approach is something that a silent majority absolutely loves. So my question to you, as a young person, I see young people, my closest friends, they're so passionate, they don't like the woke Marxism ideology everywhere, but they feel so apathetic about local government. How do we galvanize them? How do we change their minds? How do we convince them that their participation is important? Thank you.
Yeah, look, that's an excellent question, because what's happening here is at the local government level, present company accepted, there are so many people getting on there that nobody knows. The tragedy is, this is a big business. What happens to local government is seriously critically important. I don't know whether we've got to go back to serious civic training at secondary schools, civic training at universities, but we can't go on to the level of apathy and non-voting. I can remember the hospital authorities in the old days, before we changed all that. But people are getting on the hospital authority with virtually no vote at all. You just almost put your name in there. And there were some cases where there's only one candidate for the job. You're quite right. And we've got to get through and teach young people that this society we've got, this democratic society, has got to be defended. Thank you very much for saying so. At the back, this gentleman has got a microphone coming down to you now.
What's your view on the use of GPS trackers in vehicles with the new road user charges? In my view, you can't have a long-term sustainable democracy if any future government, left-leaning, extreme far-right-leaning, can have access to anyone's movements in vehicles. It creeps into the surveillance state, which your government is helping pursue with sort of mandating GPS trackers with the new road users.
Look, we've got a bill that's we're hoping to have advanced, where we're talking about the protection of people's identity. So you're right to talk about the protection of identity. It's new, it's come out, and although it's there's a suggestion, it is possibly going to raise some serious concern. Because whilst it's about a rightful purpose, finding out what the vehicle's actually doing, the question is, what are they doing with that information? And we've got a bill at the moment that seeks to protect people's privacy and their confidentiality based on not being the victim of new IT identification or new AI identification, but sticking to some of the traditional century-old protections for freedom and privacy. So I don't pretend to give you an answer today, because I know what they're trying to do, but the question is, yes, but what was happened to the information? So you're tracking someone's movements everywhere they might go. But by the way, sir, if you're trucking, I got to ask a question. Is that like in a private car? You're trucking from A to B to pay a certain rate of taxation on the road. You're doing it for a customer. Which part of that do you want to be private about? The moment you deliver the goods, you want to go somewhere else, then you're entitled to be private, yes. So it's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. I get what you're saying. And our bill we hope to be able to expand upon that and let you know what the answer is. But it's new, it's in response to new technology, and they're all grabbing new technology because it's labour saving. Of course, in time, just like the knitting looms, they will create many more jobs than are lost. But it's adapting to that and ensuring that the quality of being a citizen in a free society and a democracy is not lost. I get your point. Yeah. Yes, lady over here with the glasses. One question I told you.
One question for Winston.
Quick as possible times money.
On balance, the responsibility and functions of local council have been undertaken by retired Pākehā. What if the need for Māori wards was the perfect storm for lifting voter participation and leadership responsibility within council?
Oh, so now you're having Māori wards because you want to lift Māori voter participation. No, that's your question, isn't it?
No, my question is, what if the need for Māori wards was the perfect storm for lifting voter participation, which is what you've been telling all these good people tonight
All right.
to do?
Well, then here's my answer to you.
And leadership responsibility
I got it. You're saying
within
that
local
what if the
council.
perfect storm of Māori wards was to have far higher Māori voter participation?
No. Voter participation and leadership responsibility for local council.
Well, first of all, why would you come along and ask such an ambiguous, difficult to understand question? What's your point?
My point is the Māori ward could be a model for better representation in what you're talking about in council. So you've told these wonderful people here that voter participation is poor. What if Māori wards was a step towards increasing voter participation? We know voter participation is low.
Look, no, so let me give you my response to that.
Okay.
Here's my evidence. What's the turnout in the Maori seats?
And the Tauranga City Council?
No. What's the turnout in the Maori seats across the country every election?
Definitely lower than expected.
Precisely, that's my answer.
But
You've
it's
got
also
you've got no evidence for your proposition at all.
I do have evidence.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
My proof to you is, if Maori turnout in the Maori seats is far lower than turnout in the general seats by everybody else, who is Maori on the general roll, or European, or German, or French, or whatever they are, but call themselves New Zealand, if the turnout's far higher on those rolls than the Maori roll, then maybe the Maori people are at fault for not exercising their franchise.
But that's happening against other voter participation rates as well.
No,
So
look, I've just debunked your thesis. And I'm saying to my people, when the Maori world, part of my side is saying to the Maori people, if you want change, you've got to get involved, you've got to register, you've got to get your people out. Like they did in Rotorua. Right next door, here comes Tapswell, she wins there easily when the people come and vote for her. So if you want change, you've got to go and get it. But please don't tell me we're so useless as Maori, we need special rules to help us.
Definitely.
I'm not settling for that inverse racism. That gentleman was first, and then you over here. And then over there, yes.
In the media, there's this question about protecting youth from social media, but to do that, it seems like we need to identify everyone so that we can tell how old they are, which means if you want to use social media, you're going to be identified and your conversation identified and possibly recorded. So there'll be no private discussions, or you could get very oppressive in the way you treat social media posts.
Look, this gentleman's raised a serious question. It's about protecting, I assume you mean 16 years and younger, or 16-year-olds from social media damage. It is a huge problem we face. Because let me tell you this. The first response is to say, but now you're intervening with the rights of the parents to make these decisions on behalf of a minor. And that's a fair argument. Now, the contrast that's difficult for us is, having said that, look, you parents should make that decision. I can tell you there's a mass of parents out there saying, but we can't make the decision because we can't get that point home with our young people. We want you to make the decision. And let me tell you, we're caught, many of us in central government, with a betwixt and between a nightmare here. We don't want to change and intervene with under 16-year-olds' access to social media. We think that should be a parental responsibility. But boy, there's a lot of parents demanding that we do. Far wider than you think. So I can't answer you here right now. We're all considering it as we speak. Very, very concerned about it. Because the problem is, there's so much abysmal information being fed to young people in very putative minds, not capable of handling it. It's mind-twisting stuff. So it's a very complex, sir, and I understand what you're saying, but I don't pretend right here, right now, my party's wrestling with this, as I hope other parties are as well. Over here, the blue check shirt, and then the lady on the...
My name is Marcus Theory. I'm a New Zealand First member. I'll see you down in Palmerston North tomorrow or Saturday. I'm Maori. I'm Scottish as well. Much like yourself. Yeah, I'm very proud of both cultures. I'm proud of being a Kiwi, proud of being a New Zealander. Much to the dismay of most of my whānau, I don't think that I need concessions to be successful in New Zealand, whether that's in politics or in money or whatever it is. But my question to you, sir, is how do I convince my whānau that we don't need Māori awards, we don't need race-based funding, we don't need any sort of concessions as Māori or otherwise? Yeah, how do I convince my whānau of that?
Look, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do, but frankly, you've got to live it. You have just got to live it. And the reason why I think it's staggering, isn't it? We get out there in women's rugby and they're going hammers and tongs. When they got desperate the last World Cup, they went and hired this white man to coach them. Do you like that? It didn't matter. In a crisis, better grab the best you can get. And here's a team on the paddock, and from very difficult start, they win the World Cup. I don't know if you remember, but it's the lady who jumped in the line out 5 metres from her own line and got the ball off the English that saved us. And who cared? Because our best effort was all together. Now, I see it in all sorts of sport. I see it in golf, I see it in cricket, I see it in all, but all of a sudden you get to politics, we've got to change. Now we're not equal. See what I mean? In the rest of the time, in the rest of the professions, in the rest of the callings, we are competing against the rest of the world because we are facing reality. But the moment you get to politics, somehow we can't compete. That's terrible. That's sad. Yes, we can. But you've got to get out there and make sure your people enrol and vote. Just amazing. Lady over here, yes.
Yes, my name is Margaret Murray-Bench. I have to say we are most grateful to you. And you've questioned the other whether this man beside me was going to vote for you or not. I think, if I can say, race relations are at a very low ebb in this country. And we look to you as the leader, the only leader who speaks out about how precious democracy is. I've got Alan Sol beside me and Tracy Coxhead is over here to the left. We are the only three that voted against the Maori ward on the 6th of September when our council decided it didn't need to ask the community for its opinion. So this is going to be a serious election. The last time we did the representation review, only 3 of us voted against it again, and over just on 80% of the people said we don't want to be divided.
Yes.
So I just want to thank you. You cannot speak loudly enough on this issue. People are really, really worried.
Yes.
And while I'm on it, sir, I said to Shane Jones, he grooms, he dresses well, and so does his leader, you. And I suggested that he speaks to the Speaker of the House. You've got higher status than Shane Jones. Speak to the Speaker of the House and make sure that you have a dress code sense in Parliament. say to the men on our council who keep voting without considering the people of the community?
Wow. That's got to be one of the longest questions I've heard. But you're quite right. You know, it's sad in a way. Look, it's so much easier. They think it's so much easier as a representative to go with the flow. But they haven't even read the flow right. Out there's a massive opposition to it. I put that opposition at 85-90%. Their behaviour is for the 15%. Well, dare I say, West, you get in the big cities, it's for the woke class. There's some in the leafy suburbs who like to be on that side because they feel better about the environment. Got no idea what it will lead to. It'll lead to them being broken time if they carry on that path. But the sad thing of it all is, what do I say to those other councillors is, well, who gave you the authority to decide what the people would want without you asking them? That's what a referendum is about. Did you campaign on that? I bet not one of them did. But just you don't have to make that decision. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why that young gentleman over there is right. You've got to get involved in local government politics. You've got to hold your local body to account as much as the national body, the national politics, the national politicians to account. Because if you don't, then the kind of thing we've seen of late just gets totally out of hand. And sadly I can say this, because there are other people in the National Party here today, or four members of the National Party here today, but the National Party substantially went down that road. Let me tell you, all this descends from the fact that the UN Declaration on Indigenous Rights, I stopped Helen Clark in 2005 from even contemplating signing up to that. So nothing happened until when, under John Key, he allows Peter Sharp in the dark, dead of night, no announcement, go across there and sign up to it. But the first thing we did back now in 2023 was to say no longer were we going to honour that declaration. But it wasn't the National Party that demanded that. It was us that demanded that. And then, of course, you remember the foreshore and seabed? I saw every coastal tribe way back in 2004. Ngāti Porou, the Deep South, all the ones up north. I went to all the coastal tribes and we thrashed out the foreshore and seabed. The Maori Party went silent in 2005 election, didn't they? All the way to 2008, when John Key didn't need them, he puts them in their coalition, and guess what happens next? The Marine and Coastal Areas has got now almost 600 claims at a $400,000 per claim paid for by you, where most of the claims are Maori versus Maori. What a tragic circus. You're paying a price for these developments. And I kind of think, and here we are, 2026 coming up. This has been a long, darn battle, but that's the way politics is. It's never going to be secure unless we are constantly vigilant. What did he say in, I think it was 1796, his name was John Philpott Curran. The condition on which God hath given liberty to man is eternal vigilance. And that goes for you and me. Thank you. I'll take one more question, but I've got to hit the road because sadly we're not going to Tauranga stay overnight and fly back tomorrow morning because we can't be guaranteed the plane will fly. So we're driving, he and I are driving back tonight. All right, last question. At the very back there's a young guy.
I'm a young man. I want to make my family proud. And things I care about as a young man is like apprenticeships. And my identity as a New Zealander is troublesome with all the things going on. And I think, I love my country very much, and I just want to make my family proud. And it's just sort of like the world's moving quite quickly with all the things going on, and it's quite scary. And I just, as a young man, I'm just looking for good leadership and access to upskilling, and that's about it.
You know something, we've been a country that's been somewhat captured with, we've been a country somewhat captured with ideology of late. But the fact of the matter is, what binds people doesn't matter about their race, doesn't matter about their gender. Most people want a decent health system, hopefully not for themselves, but for their relations, should any of them fall ill. And the second thing they want is to be able to buy an affordable house that they can pay all the costs on for perhaps something less than 30% of their wages. Not like now, 60-70%, but 30% of their wages. And the other thing that people want, because education means progress, is to be able to get on the escalators of education and go as far as possible. That's right. Those are the things, those three things that people want. And they want equality. And that's what politicians far too often are not delivering.
Well, thank you, Winston, and thank you all for turning out tonight for this meeting on such an important issue. I think there's a number of messages there, messages from the floor, but I think there's a basic principle that we should always bear in mind, and that is a realisation that representative democracy is quite recent, and it's quite fragile, and it's in retreat all around the world, us included. But there are basic principles that underscore it. And one of those key principles is that all citizens share and enjoy common rights and responsibilities. And we should never differentiate or provide privilege or disadvantage on the basis of ethnicity, religion, or gender. And if you look around the samples around the world, whenever that's happened, it ends in tears. And I believe we're on the cusp of sort of going down that sort of path. It just leads to increasing polarisation and deep trouble. And we've got to think long and hard about what's at stake here. So with those few words, I'd like to make a particular thanks again to Winston. He's driven down from Auckland and heading back tonight. It's a pretty tough schedule, and filling in for Shane. He obviously dropped a minute at short notice, but thank you very much, Winston, and please show your appreciation. Thank you. Thank you.